Hello, this is OMGACEACEACE. Welcome to the third part of my video series where I review my run in 530 Scoop 6 Max tournament. This time, before I start reviewing the hands, I would like to make sure that you understand my approach to the game, and I want it to be very clear. Like I said in the first video, MTTs are quite complex, and there are different areas of the game that constantly change. We play postflop, we play preflop, we play on different stack sizes, we play with different opponents, and sometimes we play in the ICM model, and everything just changes all the time. That's why I think it's just impossible to remember and know by heart every strategy optimally, and we should just come up with simplified strategies as much as we can and go with them. And that's what the exploitative way to approach the game is all about. But what is exploit? How do we come up with exploits? We need to check the GTO scenario first, because we need to know what's the starting point, where is the equilibrium. After we find the equilibrium, we can adjust our opponent's reactions, strategies based on our experience and based on talking with our friends that play poker, how do they think about certain spot and how they would approach. We can always come up with some expected reaction of our opponent. Once we have it, we can just node log that reaction in softwares, and the software will lean towards some strategy more or less, and we will see how we can simplify and how we can come up with the best strategy versus the population. That's what we always should aim to get, like how we should play against opponent. We never play against the computer, against the GTO, but in order to know what's the exploit, we need to know where we start from, and that's what we should always do. If it sounded complicated, just don't worry, stay with me and I will do my best to show you how do we come up with exploits using two hands, one preflop and one postflop. So, like you probably saw before, I use OMGACEACEACE for preflop solutions, and I use PIOsolver for postflop solutions. So here, button opens, a regular player, and we have decision with king jack off. And let me show you the software. So this is the range that button opens with. More or less, people will open raise this range around 54% of the hands, and on small blind, after he opens, the yellow part is the calling range and the orange part is free betting range. And we can see that a lot of hands are 50-50 and want to mix calls or free bets. So this is where we can simplify our strategy and where we can come up with the exploits. So let's say we free bet, and this is the reaction that our opponents should come up with to our free bet. against the range that is defined, and they should know our range. So big blind should just jam ace jack off and pocket fives plus with all the suited broadways, and this is 60 big blinds deep. I think this is pretty unrealistic. I think people will play way tighter here, and they will maybe even call some hands. They will just not shove the lower pocket pairs. They will certainly not jam with hands like jack 10 suited, queen jack suited, ace jack offsuit. I think these hands will fold. So this makes already our free bet more appealing. Also, when we free bet, button is supposed to jam the hands highlighted in red color, which maybe will happen, maybe not. Maybe he will 4-bet or jam more queens, kings, and aces, maybe ace queen off, but this is not the most important part of this preflop solution. Just take a look at how wide he should call against our free bet. He should defend just heaps of hands, and I think this is very unrealistic against our free bet. I think that most people will snap fold hands like queen deuce, queen 3 through queen 5 or queen 6 suited. Same goes for like jack 5 suited, jack 6 suited, 10 6 suited, 9 6 suited, etc. I think all those hands will fold. Also, I don't remember someone defending king 9 offsuit. Same goes for 10 9 offsuit, which is, few combos of hands. Also, the lower suited gappers like 8-5 suited, 7-4 suited. I think those all are just folding versus a free bet 60 big blinds deep. Even hands like ace-8 off, jack-10 off, I think they are folding pretty often. So now we know that big blind is not jamming aggressive enough, and button is overfolding against our free bet. So when we come back to what happens after the button opens and what's the GTO solution, I think we can just pure free bet almost all of the hands that want to mix. So for example, 10-8 suited, king 7 suited, ace 4 suited, ace 9 suited. We just go ahead and pure free bet this because normal opponents, normal humans, will not defend that wide. So this is the first exploit I would make against a population using the preflop ranges and preflop solutions provided on GTO. I would just pure free bet the hands that are mixing here, and we just get a lot of folds. This is something I made in game. The free bet with king jack off was close to 100% in GTO anyways, but I think it's a good example on how we can exploit our opponents using the preflop charts. Okay, let's move to the next hand. This hand starts pretty simple. We open pocket queens from the hijack, the big blind flats, and we get 10-7-6 rainbow flop. So let me explain how do I approach this kind of spots. To learn postflop game, I use PIOsolver, which is a software that provides you with GTO strategies once you enter preflop ranges, and for in position, for out of position player, and you enter the sizings, raising sizings. So you basically create the whole tree here, and after that the software gives you the best strategy. As we can see on this flop, after the out of position player checks, the in position player is supposed to check around 23% of the hands, and he also shouldn't really use the small sizing, which is 30% of the pot, and he should only use 70% or 100% of the pot as his sizings. But like I said before, I prefer to have mostly one sizing and make simplifications everywhere it's possible. And in order to do that, we should see what's the reaction of our opponent versus one of the preferred sizings. Let's pick 70% of the pot. So after we bet 70%, he's supposed to raise some hands, call some hands. He's supposed to fold 44% of the hands. And we can see that there's some unrealistic scenarios, at least in my opinion. For example, he should raise some of the 10-5, 10-3 combos. He's also raising a bunch of gut shots, which is maybe happening, maybe not, but let's just leave that part. He also raises some bottom pairs with backdoors, for example 6-5, 7-5. Also protection raises hands like 10-8 and 10-9, which have pocket top pair and a gut shot. But there are some parts of the tree that I don't really like, and based on my experience, I think it's very likely that they won't happen. This is where I do the node locking part of the tree. So what I did here is that I removed raising with 6-5, 7-5 kind of hands. I also think that some people will fold like the second or the third pair with bad kickers. For example, 6 deuce of hearts, 7-3 of hearts. The hands that don't have backdoor flush draw with them. Also, I increased the value part of the raising range, so it's not only that I increased his folds, because that would definitely lean the solution towards one outcome. So I increased raising with bottom set, bottom two pair, the nuts, which are the straights, also top two pair, and bottom and top pair. The rest of the tree I didn't really do anything with that. Oh, except for ace queen. I think people will fold more than they should, and I changed it to folding 50% of the time, so it's not 100% of the time, it's only half of the combos. And this is the solution that the solver gave me. So we basically can range bet for 70% sizing, and if our assumptions to what our opponent reaction are correct, the strategy should be the best, and we should use this strategy pretty much all the time. So this was pretty long intro to the video, but I think I explained how I come up with all the solutions and with the ideas. about the hands that I will play, and I just want to show it to you one time so everything is just loud and clear. Alright, let's move to the next hands.